Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials, and our streaming audience. I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 11th council meeting. We have 9 items on our agenda this evening. We're meeting here in chambers, open for public attendance, and streaming live on YouTube. Moving forward, if you would, Ms. Moss, please continue with the roll call of the members.
Thank you, President Geringer. Greg Phillips.
Here.
Payne.
Here.
Nickerson.
Here.
Barnes.
Here.
Henderson.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Anthony Phillips.
Here.
Prohl.
Do we have a motion to excuse Mr. Prohl from tonight's meeting? I have a motion by Mr. Brown, seconded by Dr. Tony Phillips. Roll call on the motion to excuse Mr. Prohl.
Greg Phillips.
Yes.
Payne. Nickerson.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
The motion passes. At this time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. In reflection and remembrance of September 11th, we'd like to call just a moment of silence briefly and to remember the day, the events of that day, and reflect on those. Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting have been distributed for review. Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes? And if not, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as they are? Motion by Dr. Henderson, seconded by Mr. Brown. Roll call on the motion to accept the minutes.
Greg Phillips.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
The minutes have been accepted. We will now move to reports of our committees. We begin with the Community Affairs Committee. Mr. Greg Phillips.
Thank you, President Geringer. Community Affairs just has one item on the agenda. It is at a second read. It is number 3 in the ordinance approving a Trex liquor license request for 810 Western Avenue, declaring an emergency. At the appropriate time, I will ask to waive the 3-read rule on that so that they can continue the work that they need to get into their business and be fully operational. So that is all that Community Affairs has for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Human Resources Committee. Ms.
Thank
Payne.
you, President Geringer. Human Resources does have one item on the agenda tonight. That is item number 4. It is at a second read. It's a resolution confirming the appointment of Melody Oyer to the Ross County Health District Board, and we will let that go to a third read this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving now to our Development Committee with Ms. Nickerson.
Thank you. Development has nothing on the agenda tonight, and therefore we'll have nothing to report. Thank you.
Next to Finance Committee, Dr. Tony Phillips.
Thank you, President Geringer. Finance has a couple things. We have one agenda item, which is number 2 on the agenda tonight. It's a second reading, an ordinance allowing the city auditor to transfer appropriated dollars between salaries and fringes within the same fund if needed on an emergency basis for the remainder of the year 2023 and declaring an emergency. We will let that go to the third read. Finance also had 2 committee meetings tonight. The first, assignment 23-104, tax levy authorization, an annual thing that we do. Those rates are getting set and finalized, and so we will be moving forward with that for legislation. The second item was a list of capital expenditures that the committee felt we needed a little more information on. And so we're going to have, we already announced another committee meeting for September the 25th. I believe that's the next council meeting. Yep, at 6:15 here. So we want to get as much detail on each of those line items, and if possible, to get those all approved at once so we can get the best bond and loan rate possible, if we can make that happen. And also one other item, Melody Young from the Chiillicothe Visitors Bureau asked me to announce the anticipated vote for our area for the World Heritage designation will be the 19th of this month, we believe. I mean, the voting actually starts on the 16th. And there's over 50, I think 52, 53 different sites around the world that the committee will be voting on. And us being at the end of the alphabet for this particular project, we think it's going to be the 19th, but we don't know what time. If you're interested in getting the link to that to watch it, I think you can either call the Visitors Bureau, or it should be with the Gazette as well. So, and then we're 99.99% sure that's going to happen, right? We already got the signs. So the celebration will be on the 14th of October. So that's all finance has. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving next to Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Committee, Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, President Geringer. Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Committee has one item on tonight's agenda, and that is the naming of the new 6th Ward Park to be Patrick Park. We have a few announcements. So this coming Saturday, we have a few things going on. Farm to Fourth, which is a dinner and fundraiser for the Mighty Children's Museum, as well as Hirsch Fruit Farm and Market. And then we have a busy month coming up. September 20th will be the screening of Our Town, which will be playing at Ohio University Chiillicothe's campus. September 21st will be Paints and Pints with Nelly Dog Pottery and Paints. And September 22nd through the 24th is the Downtown Fall Open House, which will also include the Ghost Walk on September 23rd. Tickets are now on sale for the Frankenstein Experience at Haunted Mountain up at Sugarloaf Amphitheater. And then quickly, I'd like to make a request from the mayor. Can you give us an update during your report on discussions with Commissioner Garrett as far as the jail partnership goes? And then also, Councilwoman Nickerson, is there any update on the technology assignment that you were given a while back? Thank you.
The technology assignment, the televised options for council, we did get that final bid Friday, so I just need to meet with them, and then the next meeting, I'll call another meeting to present.
Next, moving to Safety Service and Transit Committees. Ms. Preston.
Thank you, President Geringer. Safety Services and Transit have 5 items on the agenda this evening. The first one will be item number 1. It's an ordinance providing an agreement between the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio, and the Ross County Commissioners. They'll continue to be eligible through 2024 for the state reimbursement of cost incurred in appointing counsel for indigent criminal defendants. The second item is item number 6. It's going to be a first reading of a resolution allocating 20 parking spots on the city-owned parking lot located directly west of 54 West 2nd Street. This is for 10 spots for the Ross County Sheriff's Department and 10 spots for the City Police Department. It'll also do away with a lease that we have with Janney Investments that we're paying for our police officers to park on that lot. There's some work being done on this. We may need to add some amendments to it before it actually goes to a final read. Item number 7, let's go to item number 8 is a first reading for Safety Services of an ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Chiillicothe Codified Ordinances And number 9 is also a safety service and ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the company that updates the codified ordinances for the city of Chiillicothe. He has asked for us to expedite this process, so I'll request the waiver of the 3 read on those 2 items. Number 7 is a transit item. It's authorizing the filing of applications and proposals with the ODT for grants through the U.S. DOT Federal Transit Administration, and it authorizes us to apply for those grants and execute a contract and approval. And we also want to declare an emergency on this item and waive the 3 read rule, as there are some deadlines involved in that item. And that's all that I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. In the absence of Mr. Prohl, are there any reports from the members of utilities and engineering committees? We'll now move on to reports from our officials. Our mayor, Mr. Luke Feeney.
Thank you, President Geringer. No real comments on the agenda tonight, other than to bring up, in reference to Councilwoman Henderson's request on the jail conversation update. At our last, I think it was the last safety committee meeting, which was a month or so ago, the way we left it was that I was going to follow up with the commissioners to discuss all things jail related. And in that process, looked for a review of basically all the places that the city and the county intersect contractually. One of the places that we found that intersection, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Councilwoman Preston or the law director about this, I think it was the law director's assignment, is that there's some language in that item 1 that probably needs to be updated as we look at, it's the actual addendum to the item, indigent defense, So there are 4 or 5 areas where the city and the county have essentially contracts. Many of them are around the same age as the jail contract that we've talked about in the past. This is one of them. This attachment has similar language charged to city code. I think it's in our best interest to review all of these collectively. The conversation with Commissioner Garrett similarly. We've had a long, over the past 2 or 3 years, intersection over our building department. That's another one. Costs incurred related to the law director's office, and then costs incurred related to municipal court costs. And so instead of taking these, for example, just the jail, we're going to look at them collectively. And I think that the relationship that I have with the commissioners is positive, and I expect that we'll make progress on all fronts on that negotiation. Timeline or hard updates for you today, I don't have any, but I'm optimistic that we'll have something to report here pretty soon. Then moving through on the agenda to item 5, the renaming or the naming of the new park. We've made a lot of progress in the construction of that park. Sidewalk is in. There'll be a little sidewalk path through the park. If it passes on 3rd read at our next council meeting, that should time out well for a ribbon cutting, grand opening type of thing early October, which I know is a question at a recent council meeting. So put a pin in that for coming weeks. But if you haven't been in the neighborhood, check it out. There's neat progress, and kids can play on the playground today. One thing that I'll just bring to the attention of council that will be coming soon is related to the joint responsibility of city streets with ODOT. So if there is a state route through the city of Chiillicothe, we kind of have a shared maintenance agreement wherein Main Street, for example, today, all the gas line work, the city works directly with the contractors on that work. All of downtown is torn up. We all know that. Route 50 is on next year's ODOT paving schedule. So earlier this year, I think it was this year, maybe late last year, we passed a resolution sort of acknowledging that we would pay our 20% share for Route 50. So if anybody is wondering when this construction is done downtown for 50, with the gas line work, it will not be immediately repaired. On that same front, this year, 772, which is Paint Street, is being paved. So we've coordinated several years sort of advance on this one. So that will be coming soon. The reason I bring up Route 50 is that we have learned from ODOT that their original estimate, which is 9 or 12 months old now, is somewhere between 2 and 2.5 times what it was when we first got that estimate. And so that will come back to council. It's not a current appropriation, but it's a commitment to our share of the project next year. That project will run all of 50 through the city limits, which most people think of as Main Street all the way east, but it's actually Eastern Avenue until it gets to Bridge Street. Then it turns into Main Street at Bridge Street and then continues all the way out 50. So that project will be coming in front of council for a committee assignment. It might already be in front of council. I can't remember if there's already a committee assignment request, but I wanted to just let council know that that is coming. And I want to say that they've estimated our share at somewhere around $400,000, which is a very significant portion of our annual paving budget. So that is coming, and I just want everybody to be aware because it's such a big chunk, even though we won't appropriate the money until next year's the 2024 budget cycle. And I'll end on that. Thank you.
My office has one item on the agenda tonight that's an ordinance allowing us to move funds from one department to another for salaries and fringes. I do not foresee us having to do that anytime soon, so we can let that go a third read. I do have 5 other committee assignments out there right now. One is to create funds for the sewer remodel. So that will help us track those funds from the grant money and the loan money that we received. We have the tax resolution that we met on earlier today, and a financing assignment that we met on today as well. We have the budget has begun. We have all the departments currently working right now on their operating side and their capital side. So once we get some more information, I'll give you an update on that. Other than that, that concludes my report.
And next to our law director, Ms. Villarreal.
Thank you, President Geringer. The Law Director's Office frequently receives requests from private citizens seeking legal advice and guidance. While we care deeply for the citizens of our city, I believe it'd be helpful to make sure everyone understands the Law Director may only provide legal guidance to city officials and law enforcement on city matters when requested. The Law Director is not authorized to provide legal guidance to private individuals and must suggest they seek private counsel. Please don't take that personally. That's the law. On a different note, so far this year, the Law Director's Office has provided in excess of 51 opinions for law enforcement, 14 opinions for city officials, reviewed 17 contracts for various city offices, and we're still maintaining the heavy load down in municipal court. Thank you.
We will now move on to audience participation. Council Rule 22 does limit each speaker to a 5-minute presentation, total limitation of 15 minutes per any single subject. If you get to the point where you're getting close to 1 minute left, I will try to indicate to you to summarize your presentation. Anyone who wishes to speak, we do need your name and address for our records.
Gotta have glasses. Sorry about that. Good evening. I'm Joe Hurley. I live at 47 St. Andrews Boulevard, Chiillicothe, Ohio. Peace be with you. The proposed development of Chipotle on the west side of town has been met with a great deal of enthusiasm at the Hurley household. My special son, Isaac, can't wait. And his dad likes Chipotle too. His dad likes the current owners even more. My faith teaches me to be hopeful. We certainly hope the project can be successful. I say that with reservations. The current site plan is unsatisfactory. The Board of Zoning Appeals, I call it the BOZA meeting on August the 22nd should be reheld. As the BOZA secretary noted, Debbie Engelman, and the chairman Malone acknowledged, proper notification of the meeting was not given. The location on the notification sign said the Lions Shelter in Yoctangi Park. The meeting was actually held at the city annex on South Main Street. Granted, this is a technicality, but this is the nature of the notification process. It needs to be correct. The primary reason for my complaint deals with the fact there was misinformation shared by the Safety Service Director, Cremines. BOZA Chair Malone also had misinformation, and only to be more misinformation came from former City Inspector Kelly Kite. A requested traffic study was not performed. The city engineer was not present. My understanding, the previous engineer had gotten another job and moved away, and then they had not hired another one. So there was nobody with any credentials at the meeting to discuss these very serious issues. Because I don't think of Mr. Malone, who's a nice guy, having these credentials, and I don't think the Safety Service Director is a trained engineer that I know of. So again, I don't think anybody was there on the board where they could actually handle these safety questions and these design questions, and that's unfortunate. They proceeded to grant 5 variances. I mean, one of the variances was the sign, how big the sign could be. Okay. We said we didn't want bigger signs, but they gave them bigger signs anyways. But we also talked about, they gave away right away, setback, need for landscaping. I mean, it doesn't sound like much. Okay. I agree. I understand that. But the problem with the site is the access from St. Andrews onto Western Avenue. And I think a lot of you, I assume a lot of people have gone to Bob Evans or frequented the car wash or Engle Bar, all commercial property that's located on St. Andrews, by the way. And I think you don't have to do it too many times and know, this sucks. This is difficult. This is hard. And when my son started driving, I told him, hey, just go to Kroger's. You can't get out, just turn. If you get a right turn, go right and then go through the light at Kroger's and then get going the other direction. Okay. So I think a lot of us know that. I don't think anybody here doesn't know that. Let's see here. Okay. Many people in the neighborhood are concerned about the challenges of handling the increased volume of traffic at the St. Andrews and Western Avenue intersection. There's no traffic study. We think the volume is going to increase 5 to 8 times more than what's there now. I was told they get about 5 cars an hour now, and we think they're going to get 30 to 40. So, this is a dramatic increase. And then, of course, when you couple this with the Engle Bar property, I mean, this neighborhood that street intersection really can't handle this load, in my opinion. One of the things I thought the city should do is hold on to some of the land on the site. So maybe they could build an access road, a right turn only lane. That way, people could turn eastbound and at the same time, people could turn westbound. And then you would maybe get 2 cars through the intersection instead of the current 1. So again, I'm just saying that this is what my logic tells me. The other thing is, of course, the obvious thing is, why isn't it connecting to Kroger's? Kroger's has a light. The city put that light in. All those improvements were made with the understanding that the commercial property would use that light. And it's, okay, can I ask permission to continue? I'm almost done. Oh, thank you.
Motion by Ms. Nickerson, seconded by Ms. Preston. Roll call on the motion to extend the speaker's time.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
Motion passes. Please continue.
Thank you. So the shortcomings could, but the bottom line is, I think these shortcomings of the site design could prove to be tragic and obviously could be regretful. Time will tell. I had a nice conversation with Devin Shoemaker, who's a professional engineer with the county, concerning Chiillicothe's planning ordinances. Devin doesn't think city council can do much at this point. I think you guys all know that. All eyes have to be on Mayor Feeney, as he has to pull a rabbit out of the hat. My neighbors have asked me to keep my comments positive and hopeful. Okay, and I will try. Mayor Feeney has assured some of them that he's going to look at things. That's good. He suggested a connection with Kroger's might be a possibility. He also wants to talk to ODOT about a modification of the stoplights at Kroger and Plies Lane. Looking forward, I certainly hope City Council realizes our planning regulations are poor and inadequate. Things currently stand, the city has no ability to have acceptable requirements in addition to zoning design. The city's thoroughfare planning regulations are stuck in the 90s. Too much faith is placed with the mayor, who's a good guy, but he's just a human being. Not enough emphasis on top drawer design work. Currently, the city's planning ordinances have no requirements to know how many trips the Chipotle will likely generate. This is an incredible reality that should be corrected. Be advised, there is other real estate on St. Andrews that will likely test Mayor Feeney to be all things to all people. At some point, this haphazard approach to city planning will expose everyone to the reality the city doesn't know what it's doing. I beg City Council to find a way to delay the progress on Chipotle. I request a review session be set up to properly investigate how the traffic is going to be safely managed. Thank you for your time.
My name's Paul Wigand. I also live on St. Andrews at 54 St. Andrews. And I just want to piggyback on one thing that Joe said. Regardless of what happens with the Chipotle and the Engelbar property, it's a dangerous intersection today as it exists just with the traffic that uses it now. And I think there could be a very simple solution to that dangerous situation. If you're all familiar with that area, the light at Plyley's and the light at Kroger's are probably 300 feet apart. And smack in the middle of it is our road, St. Andrews. And when the lights on Western Avenue go red, the lights on Plyley's and Kroger's immediately turn green. And there's never a lull in traffic sufficient to let a car that's turning left onto Western Avenue. I think if we could coordinate with the Ohio Department of Transportation and have those lights all stay red for a period of time, even if it's 15 seconds or 20 seconds, instead of simultaneously going red and green, it would create a gap in traffic to at least allow the existing traffic that's using the road to safely exit. It won't require any money. It won't require any infrastructure change. It would just require a timing change on those lights. And I'd like to know that someone, either on our ward council or the mayor's office or the city engineer's office, will look into that with the Ohio Department of Transportation, because I think it could make a significant upgrade for us at no cost. That's all I have to say.
I'll hold it here for you. I can hold it. I can hold it. All right, let me speak that I am Janet Griffith, and I do live at 603 Comanche Road. And for years, Gary's dad built the rink in 2003. They opened up in January. He ran it till 80. Gary and I bought it, the business, in 80 and ran it till 2006. The repairs, the changes on Western Avenue took place right about then. That street is very, very busy, not only for the residents of St. Andrews Drive, but normal citizens going anywhere to Kroger's, out past to Sunrush, or to Bainbridge. It can't take more traffic. We've made mistakes in the past that have cost Chiillicothe a lot. And one is 50. When it was developed, it should have had, all of them should have had access roads. And when 23 and the shopping center was developed, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have a lot of that traffic off of that road and on access roads coming and going to lights? Planning is important when you're doing anything. Yes, it's important to get business development into this town, but not when it costs in another way. It needs to be addressed by Mayor Feeney and whoever. I know council's not responsible, but it needs to be addressed before anything is done with Chipotle's. So the citizens know what's going on, and you know what's going on, and it's in favor of this city. So please think of the citizens and do something positive about the planning. And has there even been a traffic study going? Has anybody done one? But anyway, please, that's what I ask, because I've always regretted that 23 is developed the way it was. And I think most citizens are. So we don't want to make the same mistakes over and over and over again in name of development. Thank you.
My name is the Reverend Terry Williams. I reside at 47.5 East Main Street here in the city of Chiillicothe, and I won't be long, but I think when I am able to agree with Mr. Herlihy, it is good for brethren to dwell together in unity. As many of you know, my workplace being very near to that particular site, I frequent Bob Evans quite a lot. I was talking to Joe right before the meeting, and I said, you know, for me, whenever I'm there with parishioners, I make it a habit to also stop by Kroger on the way home. Even though Kroger's not on the way home, I have to hang a right out of there to go up to Kroger to come back around, because you're not able to hang a left out of Bob Evans onto that street. It's just not a possibility. Maybe it is for people who are a lot younger and care to pay higher insurance premiums for their risk, but it's not for those of us who are there. I am kind of concerned about what an increase of traffic looks like in that small area. And I'm also concerned about what it looks like if we don't have a long-term plan. Like Janet mentioned, having access roads might be a really great idea, particularly on that end of town. Having some connection over to Kroger might be a good idea. The last thing I will mention is if what Joe has shared is correct, that there was an error on the sign notice for that particular meeting, you do need to be aware that the Board of Zoning Appeals has to take action, of course, to rehold a meeting, but it would be a very expensive result if they get into any kind of construction and you later find out that there was an inappropriate notice. You don't really want people having to go through the court process, either here in the county court or through the Supreme Court in the remedies that are available, because that has a lot of negative consequences. It'd be better if the Board of Zoning Appeals, if that's true, goes back and holds their hearings like they should. Just my opinion.
John Thacker, 990 Columbus Street, apartment 307. Remain to this discussion, and also, but not necessarily taking that same tack, is that as perhaps some of you know, the sidewalk, which I use extensively, that goes as far as Hopewell Clinic, does not extend beyond that to Bob Evans perhaps because Bob Evans wouldn't allow it, and then also the area where the current tenant is. If whatever is put in there, it would be great if they would let us have a sidewalk there, because as you know, they have that little. It's kind of tough because they have a little. What is it like a barrier? You know what? I walked that, and it's not really safe. So, so if you would perhaps consider using whatever influence you have to let the company that ultimately ends up there put in a sidewalk so I won't stumble and break a bone or something, break a hip. That would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Let me weigh in if I can, and you go ahead and do your comments. I'll weigh in later.
Yes, I'm Jim Deersom, 39 St. Andrews Boulevard, and I concur with all the comments that my other neighbors have said. This needs to be addressed at the St. Andrews intersection, especially since Inglebar probably going to be for sale, and who knows what's going to go in there. And the situation could continue to just get worse and worse and worse. I think the mayor has made a decision that he'd like to talk to ODOT about those lights. I think that's a perfect example of how we could do something without any additional cost. And again, I don't know what the situation with Kroger's is, but Kroger's allows McDonald's to join up to their lot. So why can't you do that on the east side of Kroger's? Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Being that this is obviously in the first ward, I think, Joe, when you and I were running in 2019, we came in kind of on the tail end of the atomic being built at the bottom of Limestone, which is where I live. And obviously there was concerns there, and I thought the process worked well as far as how I'm hopeful this plays out. Where Atomic had presentations, there was ODOT was involved with that. There were even modifications made afterward, I think, to even set the access road onto Limestone seemed to be a little too close to 50, and that was the process, at least in my, at the time, not being on council and just being a resident, it seemed to work well, and I'm hopeful that that same process plays out, that we have certainly input presentations, council's kind of a part of that knowledge process to ask questions, and that there's details. And so I think that was handled pretty well, and I think it has turned out to be a decision that while that's still a weird intersection, if you're coming off Limestone trying to turn left with the delineators extending further, it seems to work pretty well. And I think it's because multiple agencies came together, slowed down, listened to people, and made decisions. So hopefully that process plays out again here with the proposed Chipotle. So thank you.
To St. Andrews Boulevard. I echo everything everybody said. I know I've talked about all of you, and everyone it was courtesy. I talked with the mayor. We had a very good conversation. But after listening to everything here, I think the thing to do is put everything on hold for Chipotle till we get this process worked out better. Until a demolition permit was issued, that needs to be put on hold. So if you're looking at helping the people in Xanders, I ask you, put everything on hold, Mayor. I mean, once 30 to 60 days, is that better than going to court and waiting for 2 years? It could be better. So I'm just saying, look out for the people in Xanders. We are citizens in this town also. So please look out for us.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation. We will now move to old business. Does anyone have any old business that they'd like to bring up at this time? Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Just a quick note about nonprofit funding committee. So first thing I want to do is affirm the work that folks did before I got here in passing that ordinance. I think it's really important that you all formalize that process of nonprofit funding requests. I think it created a fair process for requests that didn't exist before. It's just, it was a really important streamline thing. So I want to make that clear. But as a committee, both the members and the folks who've been up for review or who are coming in for review, they've asked about dollar amounts. They want to know what's appropriate to ask for. They want to know what's available. And thus far, being the sole council member in that committee, and just us brainstorming, the guidance we've talked about is just advising folks to review the yearly budget and general fund. And while, in theory, that makes sense, I hope that folks can empathize and that is a laborious, monotonous process, and one that I think folks elect us all to do for them. Having said that, I think the more I've reflected on it and the more the committee has talked about it, I think it's appropriate that we as a council decide what that is. I think it's good timing starting the new budget process, that we decide, both for 2023, but also for 2024, what, if any, what is that amount? What is it that we can communicate to folks? What does the council want to appropriate specifically for nonprofits so that they can, temper their own expectations, but also to give the committee a sense of, I believe it'll help guide the committee to make the most fair but also meaningful investments in those nonprofits. Right now, I just believe, I believe we've formalized a process, but we're missing information to make that formalized process effective. So I'm just calling on folks to maybe consider that. We have a meeting coming up October 25th. We're going to hear some folks out with their budget, their funding requests, but also if any other council members want to come, maybe we can extend that meeting and have a more lengthy dialogue about what that number looks like. Because for myself, I just feel, I don't feel it appropriate. I don't feel empowered to make that decision myself. And I'm actually a pretty conservative person when it comes to finances. So I think I would hand out very little money. So I just think that we need to make that decision together. Thank you. That meeting is October 25th. It's a Wednesday at 5:15.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Now moving to our participation and correspondence received by the clerk.
Thank you, President Geringer. I have quite a few things this evening. Mr. Herlihy, will it suffice what you said, or did you want me to read your emails? No. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Oh, of course. Okay, I have 3 liquor licenses here. 2 are new, 1 is a transfer. If anyone does have any issues, they need to be discussed this evening. If not, I'm going to go ahead and sign and send them back. So just a heads up. The first is a new liquor license request for Bell Farms Catering, LLC, doing business as Bell Farms, 59 East Water Street, Chiillicothe, Ohio, 45601. The second is a new liquor license request from Tipplers LLC, 71 North Paint Street, Chiillicothe, Ohio, 45601. And the last is a transfer from to Cash 740 LLC from Big Bear Creek LLC, doing business as Our Kitchen on Paint Street, for 66 North Paint Street, Chiillicothe, Ohio, 45601. Okay. The one that's kind of gutted right now, yeah. Okay, and that's it. Thank you.
Now to new business. Is there any new business that needs to be brought up at this time? Not seeing any, we will move on to our legislation. We have 9 items on our agenda this evening. Ms. Moss, whenever you're ready, please start with item number 1.
Thank you, President Geringer. Item number 1 is the second reading of an ordinance providing for an agreement between the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio, and the Ross County Commissioners, whereby the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio, will continue to be eligible through 2024 for state reimbursement of costs incurred in appointing counsel for indigent criminal defendants.
That item will move to our next agenda. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is the second reading of an ordinance allowing the city auditor to transfer appropriated dollars between salaries and fringes within the same fund if needed on an emergency basis for the remainder of the year 2023 and declaring an emergency.
That item will move to our next agenda. Item number 3.
Item number 3 is the second reading of an ordinance approving a Trex liquor license request for 810 Western Avenue and declaring an emergency.
President Geringer, at this time, I would like to request to waive the 3-read rule on this agenda item.
Motion by Mr. Greg Phillips, seconded by Ms. Nickerson. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Yes.
Barnes, Nickerson,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Greg Phillips.
Yes.
The motion passes. Roll call on the ordinance.
Preston,
Yes.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
The ordinance passes. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is the second reading of a resolution confirming the appointment of Melanie Euler to the Ross County Health District Board.
This item will move to our next agenda. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is a second reading of a resolution naming the park located in the City of Chiillicothe's 6th Ward, Patrick Park.
This item will move to our next agenda. Item number 6.
Item number 6 is the first reading of a resolution allocating 20 parking spots on the city-owned parking lot located directly west of 54 West 2nd Street and declaring an emergency.
This item will move to our next agenda. Item number 7.
Item number 7 is the first reading authorizing the filing of applications and proposals with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants through the U.S. DOT Federal Transit Administration as authorized under federal transit laws as codified 49 U.S.C. Section 5311, Formula Grants for Rural Areas, and the Ohio Transit Partnership Program grant, both in Ohio's Rural Transportation Program and grants authorized under federal transit laws as codified 49 U.S. Section 5399 grants for buses and bus facilities, Ohio's Bus and Bus Facilities Transportation Program, accepting such grants if awarded, executing a contract with ODOT upon project approval, and declaring an emergency.
President Geringer,
Ms. Preston,
I'd like to make a motion at this time to waive the 3-read rule on that item.
Motion by Ms. Preston to waive the 3-read rule, seconded by Ms. Payne. Roll call on that motion.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
The motion passes. Roll call on the ordinance.
Greg Phillips.
In keeping with Ms. Kennedy, never having to read that again, yes.
Thank you. Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
The ordinance passes. Item number 8.
Item number 8 is the first reading of an ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Chiillicothe codified ordinances and declaring an emergency.
President Geringer,
Ms. Preston?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule on this item, please.
Motion by Ms. Preston to waive the 3-read rule, seconded by Dr. Henderson. Roll call on that motion.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Motion passes. Roll call on the ordinance.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
The ordinance passes. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is the first reading of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Walter H. Drain Company to update the codified ordinances of the city of Chiillicothe to prepare 20 sets of replacement pages, to update the code on the internet, and declaring an emergency.
President Geringer,
Ms. Preston?
I'd like to make a motion at this time to waive the 3-read rule, please.
Motion by Ms. Preston to waive the 3-read rule, seconded by Ms. Payne. Roll call on the motion.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
The motion passes. Roll call on the ordinance.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Greg Phillips.
Yes.
The ordinance passes. Are there any additional items that need to be added or brought up at this time? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion by Ms. Payne, seconded by Dr. Henderson. Roll call on the motion to adjourn.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
Have a wonderful evening. We